Continuing on with Season 7 of The Clone Wars, we hop over to Episode 7, Dangerous Debt. As we know from the last episode, the Pikes, a powerful crime syndicate, has captured our crew for trying to trick them, for trying to dupe them. We open up on Ahsoka talking to Rafa about not profiting from other people's suffering, right? It's an interesting back and forth, a little battle of morals, one that transcends the show. But it's the monologue from Rafa that follows their brief conversation that is the most interesting thing here. She tells a short story about the Jedi chasing Zero the Hutt after a prison break and a ship being steered clear of a populated landing platform by the Jedi, and it was steered right into their home, which killed their parents. Now, Rafa is giving us a recap of the episode Hostage Crisis from Season 2, and this monologue ties actions to consequences, civilian casualties, and collateral damage. Rafa goes on to describe a Jedi after these events that came over to talk to her, and the description that Rafa gave sounds a lot like Luminaria, but this Jedi, which I'm assuming is Luminaria, told Rafa that she had to make a choice, but don't worry, the Force will be with you. These are very hollow words from an authority figure brushing off the consequences of their actions. Very shallow. Oh, don't worry, the Force is with you. I know these actions had consequences that ultimately got your parents killed, but the Force will be with you. This opening monologue further pushes the idea of the Jedi not being what they were originally meant to be, or losing their way, or not being the squeaky clean guardians of peace and justice that maybe they think they are. You see, Rafa trusts no one. She wants no one's help. She's looking out for her and her sister. She thinks this is the only way. And after the life that she's lived, I think we can all empathize a little bit. And this monologue furthers Ahsoka's newfound opinion of the Jedi from an outside perspective. She's hearing about this organization that she was a part of from an outsider. And when you are in something, let's say you're a part of something, when you're in an organization or an ideological group, it's often hard to see its faults, right? I mean, maybe you're emotionally attached to it. Maybe you've laid your entire identity on the backbone of this group. Whether it be a business or a religion or an ideological movement, you name it. It can be hard to see its faults from the inside. So this episode is pretty simple. It's all a build up to kind of a reveal. I'll break down what happens in the middle here. The Pikes come and take Rafa away. They torture her. They want information on the spice. When they're done with Rafa, they get Trace, but she's able to escape the guards. And after that, Ahsoka uses the Force to get out of their cell. They meet up and they go on the run. Oh, and we hear the Wilhelm scream for the first time in Season 7. I think it was the first time. Anyway, Ahsoka is still hiding her powers. She helps Trace jump a gap. She jumps through the air herself, but she's still trying to hide her powers. No one's hunting her at this point. I guess she's just trying to lay low, maybe forget that side, that life that she once lived a little bit, or maybe she doesn't want to reveal her past to Trace and Rafa. But all of that super duper powerful stuff would have come in handy, right? I mean, especially right about now. Ultimately, Ahsoka splits up from Trace and Rafa. This gives, I guess, Ahsoka a little bit more time, a little bit more leniency to use her strengths. And when they split up, the show does a good job kind of showing the audience the difference between these characters. Rafa and Trace are up against even smaller odds than Ahsoka, because Ahsoka rises up from an elevator and she finds herself in the middle of six or so Pikes, but she's able to handle it with relative ease. And Trace and Rafa, they can't take down one Pike together. They get pinned down behind blaster fire, and it ultimately takes Ahsoka to kind of save them unknowingly. They don't know that Ahsoka saved them, which is still a fun, playful thing to do with the Force. Despite me thinking, why isn't Ahsoka using the Force here? It would definitely come in handy. I do like the sneaking around here and there, subtly, or as subtly as she can use the Force. She helps jump, she pulls some Pikes behind cover, giving Trace and Rafa the delusion of being good marksmen. It is fun. It's fun to see her subtly use these powers here and there. Ultimately, they make it out of this sticky situation. They find themselves in a spaceport, but they're still being hunted by the Pikes. A beggar, a drunk on the streets, asks them for some credits. They brush him off. When the beggar encounters the Pikes, he quickly gives up Ahsoka and crew and tells them where they are. Now, is this pretty on the nose? Yeah. maybe there's a little moral lesson here that they're trying to convey. Be more like Ahsoka, right? Maybe if Ahsoka followed her gut, they wouldn't be in this situation and this guy wouldn't be ratting them out. I guess if they would have given the guy a hot dog, maybe he wouldn't have ratted them out. You know, take that as you will, but it's possible that he could have, or maybe not. Maybe he'd get credits from these two sources. That's probably the case, right? Hiccup. So as I said, this episode is pretty simple. It's all about a lesson for Ahsoka, and it's all about a reveal of what's to come. The Pikes give chase, Trace and Rafa get captured, Ahsoka swoops down to save the day, they get caught once again, and at the end of the episode, they end up exactly where they started. They're back in a prison cell, and we hear Rafa being very apologetic for the first time. But more than all of that, we see Mandalorians, and things are tied up. Apparently I had to look this up, I didn't know this, I couldn't tell by the voice. Ursa Wren, Sabine's mother, is the one talking, the Mandalorian that talks. She seems to recognize Ahsoka, and Bo-Katan, who's there, says, you know, they have a common enemy, and they're going to keep track of Ahsoka. And that's what this episode is all about. I think it's all about Ahsoka's further learning about the Jedi from an outside perspective, mixed with some fun give and chase, and a reveal that the Mandalorians are watching Ahsoka. There's a common enemy, and that common enemy is Death Watch and Darth Maul, right? Ultimately, what do you guys think is going to happen? I think it's pretty obvious that the Mandalorians are going to come down and save the crew, save Ahsoka and Rafa and Trace from the prison cell that they're once again in. It was just kind of a big circular episode, right? They started off in a prison cell, they ended up in a prison cell, and now the Mandalorians, it would seem, are going to jump down and save the day. I like how things are all kind of coming together. There's no question in my mind that the common enemy is Darth Maul because, you know, I mean, even without that knowledge, we do see Ahsoka in the trailers confronting and battling Darth Maul. So it seems like that will be the case. I think this is where things are going to kick into gear and maybe we'll see even more familiar faces. We'll definitely see Darth Maul. And I think much of Ahsoka's past is going to be revealed in the next episode. I'm sure Trace and Rafa will find out all about her past and that she was, you know, a Jedi and she left the Order, and maybe there'll be further conversations about all of that and the air of the organization's ways that she's kind of discovered since she left. So yeah, I like this episode. I think my favorite stuff in season 7 so far is kind of when we are alongside Ahsoka for her journey of learning about the organization that she was a part of. Because as I said earlier, when you're inside of a group, when you're inside of a business or an organization or even a military or an ideological group, a political party or something else similar, where everybody kind of has the same ideological beliefs, it's very difficult to see the fault of your ways when you are inside of the group. And now that Ahsoka is out, she's learning about those faults. And it's interesting to see. Let me know what you guys thought in the comments section below. HelloGreedo, out.